Well, welcome to another episode of Rim Shots with Sean right here in the Rock Rage Radio Network. I have from the where it's always sunny, as they tell me. I haven't been for a while, but I have the lovely Rae Radick from Philadelphia. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm not doing so bad. I'm not doing so bad. I guess I'll give a shout out to our friends on the West Coast that are going through a little bit of a big rough time right now. But had a similar thing happen here in our neck of the woods last year, and it's terrible, but people get through it. People band together and get through it.
Yeah, I mean, we're all sending thoughts and prayers to everyone over there in California. But I will say it's actually really beautiful to see how many people are camaraderie together and
Yep,
really, helping everybody out and really pulling for them. So, thoughts and prayers, absolutely.
100%. So, without further ado, I have a good friend of mine that says, "Okay, you got to talk to Rae," and I'm uh, anytime that somebody asks me to do an interview, I'm always game. And without further ado, she tells me I need to talk to you. Why, Rae? What do you have on the go?
I have a lot of things. It's
Yeah,
a matter of pick your poison. I'm always
yeah.
busy. I'm always busy doing a bunch of things, but I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm visiting Philadelphia right now for a couple shows, and there's a conference in New York this weekend. But I'm originally out of Nashville, and right there, I'm a singer-songwriter. Performing every week. Pitching my songs out there, putting out originals and albums. And recently, I just put together an iconic women of music tribute show. And it's something I'm very passionate about and I'm so excited about because I realize that there's a lot of tribute shows out there that's very specific, like Women of Rock or disco or whatever. And I thought, with all of my experience, I've been in the business now for, oh my gosh, I want to say like 15, 20 years maybe. And I noticed that one of my fortes is the fact that I'm very eclectic. I was trained in opera and then I went to jazz. And then when I started working professionally, it was more pop and rock. And then obviously being in Nashville, it's country. So I'm very lucky in my journey to be able to sing and perform a bunch of different genres. And so I thought, you know what? The public does not have a show consisting of all of these genres together. And I figured, I'm a big woman's woman, and so I love the fact that women are really coming together and making this big movement. So I figured let's honor the journey of how far women have come since Ella Fitzgerald, Dolly Parton into now, where they're taking over the world and winning Grammys and Oscars and things like that.
Something that's very interesting because I represent a female artist up here in Canada, and we talk about this quite a bit. Something that's very interesting to me when you take I guess we'll call them generational. When I by that I'll
Mm.
mean every 10 to 15 years, the breakout lights out stars are usually women. So I think Madonna, I think Lady
Mm.
Gaga, obviously Taylor Swift, Pink, right? And so it seems like they have to work a little bit harder. But when they do break and then when they do hit, and then it circumvents back to a Dolly Parton who's just, she needs no introduction, she needs nothing. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that the women still have to work a little bit harder, but then when they do, they
Mm.
just really blow up?
That's a really good question. Um, I'm gonna say I think there was a big blow up. I want to say about 10 years ago. I remember listening on the radio that women were really upset. There was a Nashville producer who was a man, and he was like, music is really about it's like a salad, and the men are the lettuce, and the women are the tomatoes. And
Mhm.
I remember a lot of women, as soon as he said that, kind of got upset, of course, and they're rightfully so. And I think up until that point, music was focused on men. And then when the women were able to come on the radio, they were, it was very few and far between. So I really don't know the answer to that question. Maybe it has to do with patriarchy. Maybe it has to do with, who's really running the show. But I will say, this is for both men and women. Whenever you're the underdog or whenever you have to work twice as hard, it actually instills in you the best kind of habits, discipline, passion. You have to learn how to overcome adversity. You have to be your own cheerleader. You have to be your own mom. You have to be your own coach. So with all of those things combined, I feel like it instills a much more well-rounded person so that when they do reach that success, they have all of the good habits and the good character qualities, which allows them to last. Someone like Dolly Parton in this business for 70 years, or Lady Gaga or Pink.
Well, and I mean, if you take Dolly Parton as an example, I mean, the thing about her, I mean, she's just so real. Like you just get the
Yeah.
feeling, you know, if you meet her at the Madison Square Gardens, you meet her in a coffee shop in her hometown, you're going to get the same person.
Hmm. And that's
Um,
one of the things I love about her too, is you can tell she's not faking it.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, and it's you know, I don't want to every time I do this, people go, "Oh, you're just trying to make a statement and jump on a bandwagon." But I'm not because I do feel that still in this kind of day and I see it with Michelle, who I promote, is you got to push a little bit harder on things, and you shouldn't have to. To me, in a perfect world, talent should rule the day, and whether you're drop dead gorgeous or you're just a plain Jane or Jim or whatever, it should be talent. But unfortunately, that's never the world we've lived in, right?
Correct. And that's actually something that I wrestle with a lot is, it really doesn't have to do it doesn't have to do with talent. It's about who you know. And especially today with social media and
Right.
everything, you don't even if you do um, know someone, it depends on your followers.
Right.
So it's just like everything. I feel like everything today is very, very fabricated. I do miss the days. I mean, I wasn't alive, but like in the 70s and 80s where you did have to have at least a little bit of talent, like Bruce
Yep.
Springsteen, and Billy Joel and Whitney Houston. Like at least once you had the talent and you cultivated it, then it's a matter of like just meeting the right people. But today, you don't even have to have talent because there's autotune. There's so many different AI things that are coming out. So it's just a totally different world.
Well, and I mean, I'll throw down because when in I guess it was 93, 94. I mean, I'm playing in a rock band in Halifax. I had to move to Toronto because I wasn't a Nirvana type band, right? And I
Mm,
mean, that was the first time where I've worked my ass off to get good at something, and you don't have to be good at it. And that's not to crap on anybody, but it was a different, I think it was a humbling thing where maybe the music, I hate the term organic, but it was like, you know what, we're just going to be real. And I think some of the snobbish players couldn't, I maybe was one at the time. But
mm.
I think that was the beginning of the whole, well, talent maybe isn't the only thing that you need. I think we're going back to that a little bit. Do you
You
feel
know
that?
what? Yeah. I mean, yes and no. So like because of social media, you have to be real because people can sense
Yep.
fakeness right away or if you're like fabricating. So I will say the good thing about social media, Twitter, people, always being in the spotlight because of Instagram and TikTok and stuff is that you do have to find who you are and be real about it. That is definitely something that is wonderful. Um, and what did you say before? I wanted to touch on something.
Well, I was just talking about now. It
Mm.
seems like it's maybe coming around a bit where talent is starting to become a little bit more of a thing
Oh, I was gonna say yes and no. Like I
now.
have the amount of people I know who are using tracks, karaoke tracks on stage,
Yeah.
doing live shows and, auto tune. It's like, I don't even know. You do have to be talented a little bit, but I have a feeling it's a little bit more of like you have to be really likable
Yeah.
and have like pretty good songs and then just know people.
That's fair. I mean, and we talk on my show. We talk about networking all the time, right? And the
Yeah.
fact that, well, I mean, you and I met through a common person that we both know. This is the first time that we met. I bet you if we spent 10, 15 minutes, there'd be other people that we knew, right?
Mhm.
And people don't understand that music business is really about that big, and they don't get it. They think it's this vast thing, and it's not,
No, absolutely. Especially the more specific you get, in terms of your field.
right?
Yeah.
Um, So I don't like to do this, but I do it sometimes because when I'm trying to introduce somebody to my audience, I say, okay, if I was to do, you mentioned you have an opera background, a jazz background, a pop background. If I was to say, okay, give a comparison of who you might be so that my audience goes, oh, wow, who might that be?
Oh, absolutely. I always say I'm a combination of Shania Twain,
Hmm.
um, Tina Turner's stage presence and energy, with a Dolly Parton homegirl everyday energy as well. So
So
yeah, I
are you,
think Shania Twain, Tina Turner, and Dolly Parton.
well, and So obviously is a Canadian, and I've been to Shania's hometown. And if you've ever gone there, you'd be astounded at how she actually made it because it's a very small town, right? And it's in northern Canada. But the thing about her that is so interesting, I don't know if you know the story about Mutt Lange, but he wanted to produce country music in Nashville because we know how Nashville can be. No, you're a rock guy, so he basically said, "I'm going to produce something that's going to be the biggest thing." He basically defined country. I think he redefined country music when she came out, and all of a sudden you have these writers that are writing Def Leppard with country music singers, right? And now it's kind of got a little bit back. But what is it about her that you identify so much with?
I love her. I love everything about her brand. You know, she is absolutely gorgeous, stunning. If you ever watch her in interviews, she's very personable,
Mhm.
likable. You can tell that she's humble as well. And then not only that, her choice of working with Mutt Lange because her songs are undeniably awesome.
Yep.
They are catchy, they are fun. And of course, you know, going back to her brand is her, you know, she's all about women's empowerment and feeling good in your skin, especially in the 90s when women were starting to work more. You know, it was all about, you know, man, I feel like a woman and honey, I'm home and that don't impress me much. I feel like she really was able to bridge the gap of not only country and pop, but she was sporty and sexy and you wanted to be her best friend, but she also was like as gorgeous as Marilyn Monroe. So she kind of combined everything, all of the good things in my opinion about women, music, branding, people, and just kind of like this god to me.
Well, and I'm man enough to say I think she came out the better in the spouse swap because she wound up with like
Yes,
right. So
absolutely. When
yeah,
I heard, and it's so funny too, I feel like every single person in the world was like, I'm sorry, he cheated on her for who?
well,
Like,
right,
of all the
right.
people, Shania, no way.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and it's funny because like, I remember, oh gosh, this was back in like 1991, 92. So she hadn't connected with Mutt Lange, but she opened for George Strait here in Halifax.
Mm,
And I was doing something at that show, and she set up this little booth, and we went and we talked to her, and I'm sitting there going, never heard of her before. And she was super nice, and it was just like, yeah, it'd be cool if she made it. And then, of course, she does. And my two country music experiences that were like that was there was another show here in Halifax. Brad Paisley was the headliner.
mm.
Rodney Hampton was the number two, and then some girl by the name of Taylor Swift opened the show. And that was right around when Tim McGraw had just come out and all that. And I remember going like, "Wow, I don't really know much about country, but this audience just is incredible. Everything they did, they were supportive. It was as a rock player, so when's the beer bottle coming at the stage? And it never happened, right? So I
Or the
mean that
mosh pit.
right, and that's the thing, and that's the one thing about that genre of music. And I'll ask you, is that something maybe about that genre of music that you enjoy too, just the support of the fans?
Everything. I mean, I feel like the support of the fans is what music is based off of in general, right? No matter country, pop, rock, or whatever. But I will say the thing that I love about country music is that it's really about your hometown vibes, right? It all comes down to God, your family, you know, drinking or partying or something. But at the end of the day, at least for me, I am very close with my family, and I come from the suburbs. I come from a small town, so it's really something that just reminds me of home.
So I had a Nashville musician on a few weeks ago. He had a great line. You don't make it in Nashville. Nashville makes you. And
Mm.
I thought that was great because I know a lot of people from up here that go down there and they kind of get a little bit put out that there's a pecking order. There's a way you do things down there. You can be the best in the world, but you got to pay your dues. You got to do it the same way everybody else does. Is that what you find about that town and when you get there?
Absolutely. When I first got there, coming from New York City, I had so much of a culture shock because I was so amazed how structured it is and how,
Right.
like you're right, there is a specific way to do things. And so I was very confused on how to read the town. Um, you do have to pay your dues. However, I will say the cool thing about Nashville is that they do reward you for talent. So if you are talented, like you will get around. They celebrate talent. And also, if you are not a nice person, that also comes through and people won't call you as much. So it
Hmm.
almost like it puts you to the test in terms of your character and your work habits and your marketing skills as well as your talent. So it kind of like creates this diamond in an unconventional way.
Well, I had a friend that went down there a couple of months ago and didn't like it. So I think he just explained why.
Hmm.
No
Yeah,
talent, not a very nice person. So there you go.
there
That's
you
another
go.
story for another day.
And they'll chew them up and spit them right out. They're
Well,
like,
well,
nope.
well, and that's the thing. And another thing that comes up and it came up again today in my podcast social media group is the fact good person versus talent. Because, let's face it, bad people make it. That's just a fact of life. And I've wrestled with that before too, where you see somebody that you know doesn't deserve it and they do, but it's not your call that they do. Um, but it makes more sense just to be a good person, and if that's all you get out of life, then that's all you get out of life. But you're thought of as a good person, so I mean, not a bad thing if that's what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that's the foundation. And then that also ties into what we were talking about before with social media. So if you take you take two scenarios. You have one character, let's say character A, they're a really good person and they're like kind of talented. You know, they can sing, but like that's why, that's their shtick. And then you have the second person who's incredibly talented. Think someone like Bob Dylan, but just very not likable.
Yeah.
The first person is going to have more followers. The first person is going to have more of a fan base just because of that. And like I said, now that you have to be on social media today, you have to interact with the crowd. You have to talk to the camera. That's why that first character is going to beat out the second character. And uh I don't know how I feel about it because I also believe you have to have lots of talent too. But again, it creates that balance of like making sure that you're checking in with your moral compass as well as working on your craft.
Well, yes, and I mean, I agree with you there because I read a thing a month or so ago, and I didn't agree with it. It was by somebody that I respect and I know they're very successful, and they said that the audience decides whether you're going to be successful or not, and I challenge that a bit because I think now everything is so force fed with social media and how it's done. You don't like I don't want to say you don't have a choice, but most people don't know how to make a choice. It's made for them,
That's absolutely right. I mean,
right?
I hate to say it, and it's like almost pulling the veil off from your face, but today you really don't. It's not really about the fans. It's
Yeah.
about there's so many people behind who like say you have a song, you have $400,000 pushed just in TikTok alone
Yeah.
in ads, getting influencers to share your song, and then you have another $400,000 pitched into YouTube and Instagram and social media and stuff. So it's like because like you said that's the perfect word, it's so force fed,
Mhm.
people just assume, oh, because everyone's talking about this song must be good, and it's almost like hijacking you.
Well, and they say 95% of the people will go one way and the other five will go. I will be the 5% that will be standing out in the cold by myself. If I don't like something, I don't care if everybody. And does that sometimes get the better of me? Maybe it does, but I really think that a good old band up in Canada called Rush. I will choose free will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
Mhm.
So you're at these conferences now. 20. I don't know how your 2024 went. I mean, everybody's has a different story. I mean, mine. I told people the highs of mine were great, the lows were the crap. But how was your 2024?
Oh man, it was not my best year.
Yeah,
I hated it and I'm so glad to see it go.
yeah,
However, if you know me, I always, try and see the silver lining. I'm a very positive person. And I will say the best way I could describe my 2024 was like it was a foundation year of like
yeah.
I had to really go back to the basics on a lot of things, and I had to think outside the box and really ask really hard questions and get honest answers, and a lot of distilling going on. So I feel like 2024 kind of stripped me of a lot of stuff to lay a solid foundation. And now going into 2024, I feel like now I'm ready to start building the muscle.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fair. I mean, I was that knucklehead that threw down January 1st. This is going to be my
Mm.
best year, and within days, I could see that. Oh, that was probably not the best thing to say. However, things like that. if you get through them, they make you better, they make you wiser, they make you, and I think
Mm.
it's pretty cool when people talk about that because I mean everybody, oh man, this was the best, and and obviously everybody only wants you to see the good things that they've done. They don't want to see the struggles, and I get that, but I don't know necessarily how that helps people, especially if you're in a business that you want people to like you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a hard line to walk through because you're trying to be real, and part of being an artist is being real and open, right?
Hmm.
And vulnerable and likable, and people can connect with you. But at the end of the day, you're also not trying to share every one of your flaws, you
Yep.
know? So you do have to be careful about what you show and what you don't show. However, I do think it is very, very important not to be so cookie cutter all the time
Yep.
because then people, like I said, they can't connect to you because you're so put together.
And that's very hard, right? Would you agree with
Mm.
that to be not be cookie cutter?
Oh my gosh. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm happy that I'm an artist today. Whereas in the past, like in like Shania Twain,
Yep.
in the 90s or in the 80s, you did have to have a solid image,
Yep.
whereas today, like you can kind of, you can go on your Instagram story without any makeup or very light makeup and just say something really funny like, "Oh, this is my breakfast today. Hope you guys have fun." And it's no big deal because people see that like you're a real person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think sometimes that's overlooked and totally omitted. And I mean, one of the things, and I see it kind of in my life. Like I was one of the first guys the last few years, only because it wasn't to be, well, cool. You're playing stages that are very hot. So I get a fan going and the hair is blowing all over the place. People would make fun of me. Ah, and all of a sudden I see other people doing it. Right. Or, the big drum set because I'm a drummer and they, oh my God, that's stupid. Now everybody's, and I'm not saying I'm an innovator. It's been around since, you know, the 50s, but some people are kind of afraid to step out and redo that. And I think that you have to, if some people are paying money for what you're doing, you got to give them a little bit more than just t-shirt and jeans sometimes, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Can I be
Please.
honest with you? When I first moved to Nashville, I am glamorous. Like I love the big hair. I love my red lipstick and like my cute outfits. I love diamonds and sparkles and rhinestones. And people in Nashville came up to me and said, "Look, you got to tone it down.
Yeah,
You are too much." And I thought, well, I don't see how I'm being too much. Like I'm just wearing what I like and I'm being authentic to myself. But they said it was a little, I need to water myself down. And like I said, 2024 was a very stripping down
mhm,
year for me. And it really forced me to ask myself, do I change? Do I start wearing a cute t-shirt and jeans because they told me to? Or do I just wear what I want to wear because that's authentic to me? And that actually led to me putting my tribute show together because if you look at people like Dolly Parton and Shania Twain and Tina Turner and all these wonderful artists, that people told them to do one thing, and they were like, "No, that's not me," and they
yep.
decided to stick to their guns. And so I thought that has got to be that should be shared. And then that is part of the reason why I connect with these women as well because you'll never if you see me on stage in a t-shirt and jeans, something's wrong.
Well, and I agree, and I think a tip off of certainly to when my band and the artists that I work when we were on something, we were playing a show and I was on a break and this guy calls me over and he goes, "You look like a band." He goes, "I can't tell in this day and age who's the people eating the chicken wings and who's the people that are going up to play." And I was just like,
Mm,
"Wow, bang on!" And that was such a huge compliment.
yes, yes. And that's the thing in Nashville too, is at least we'll talk we were talking earlier about it's easier for men versus women.
Hmm.
When I do perform on Broadway, which is a very famous street in Nashville, guys will literally come in almost like they got off of cutting the grass
Yeah.
in like the baggiest t-shirt, their hair is disheveled, thick beard, holes in their jeans, and they just go up there and they play and they sing and nobody cares. But I do know a couple people who are women who went up there, oversized t-shirt, didn't comb their hair, or maybe they had their hair in a ponytail, baggy jeans, and they get criticized and they don't get as many tips. And so
Yeah.
it's like, it's just so interesting, right?
Annoying is what I would call. Because I mean, like, yeah, I hate to say the new country, but the new country thing to me now is, crusty old ball hat, and you go up on stage, and um, I realize some people. I mean, I'm very lucky. You can't tell right now, but I get a full head of hair, and it just doesn't look so great, so I put on my toque. But you got to give people more, right? If they're laying down money, you got to give them something because a big part of when I was growing up was, the whole the aura of a performer, right? Like you were different than people. You looked different. You acted different. You were
Mhm.
different. You had a different talent, a different skill set. I mean, I can't change oil in a car, but man, I can play drums. You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
type of thing. So do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it speaks to you have to really be authentic to yourself, right? Like that's literally like you like you said it yourself. I'm not good at changing oil, but I can play the drums. And
Yeah.
then another person, like they might not be a good singer, but they're a fantastic doctor. So it's really about knowing what speaks to you and being authentic and true and not being ashamed of it. Like I said earlier, people were like, "Hey, you're too glamorous. Nashville doesn't like you." And I'm like, "Well, I'm still going to be me because I don't really care."
You'll always
So,
find an audience, I think, if you're sincere, right? I think you will.
exactly.
Um,
Like, that always comes through. Like you said, your aura, if you stick to your guns and you're a real person and you're an honest person, that comes through.
100%. So your tribute show, where can people catch you on that?
Yeah, so I'm in the midst of booking it, so I'm super excited. I know for sure we're going to be in Alabama coming up in 2025, Georgia. I'm working on a show in California, specifically Orange County, although it's not confirmed yet, so I don't want to say any specifics. And Nashville. So I've got two coming up in the next upcoming weeks. We have Georgia at Mad Life Studios in February, and then Williamson County Performing Arts Center March 9th in Franklin, Tennessee.
And I'm sure you got some socials and stuff where people can find you and get some updates,
I'm on all the social medias. I'm
right?
on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can look me up on my website. You can spell it R as in, Rae, Rae, Radick, and Apple Music, Spotify, all the good stuff.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this. I got to tell you, my girl never lets me down out there in the West Coast with her guests and her clients. So thank you so much. Let's stay in touch. I want to see how 2025 is going for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
We're back after this.